In the beginning, the land was void of swamp. It was a desert, a dry, dusty plain.
Pangea was the big landmass that was combined North and South America with Europe and Africa. They were all combined together as one big chunk of land. And 200,000 years ago, they just begun to split out.
Fast forward 190,000 years and a few ice ages, and we find ourselves in the midst of Earth's last glaciation, the Wisconsin Glacial episode. Ice sheets up to 2 miles thick covered much of North America and pushed the tops of the Appalachian Mountains down south to create the coastal plains, which at one time stretched another 60 miles off the current coastline of eastern North America. Then things started to warm up. The jet stream retreated south from the Florida-Georgia line to below modern Florida. The glaciers started melting. Sea levels began to rise, and aquifers created by the splitting of the Pangea landmass began to fill up a few thousand years ago under what is now the Okefenokee Swamp. Transient animals found refuge, as did new plants and animals to the area, and the process of biologic succession began.
One community succeeding another, and every time one community dies, it contributes its members to the floor. It's succeeding right now. Trees are dying, and as they fall down, go boom, they become a part of that soil and that peat bed. Every time an animal dies, if he's not being eaten, he's a part of the peat bed.
All of the animals in the swamp really are travelers, and unless they die in the swamp and become part of it, they really are nothing more than we are when we visit these pristine wetlands. Tourists, just passing through. They migrate from one end of the swamp to the other as the seasons change. Some voyagers, like the red wolf, cougar, and ivory-billed woodpecker, have come and gone.
Because we are expanding. We're building new developments, new highways. Right now, between here and Homerville, they're going to widen US 84 between Waycross and Homerville from a 2-lane to a 4-lane. And it goes right across the northwest quadrant of the swamp. And that's where 85% of all the watershed is. That's 85% on one plot. So all that water, any waste, any oils, gases, insecticides, herbicides, battery acids, whatever, is going to end up in the swamp. So the riverkeeper, the Satilla Riverkeeper, and the National Wildlife Refuge is putting pressure on them to use 3 silt fence and we're going to monitor all the water chemistry going into the swamp.
With the rate of human consumption, encroachment, and development, it's no wonder that animals like the giant wood stork had to leave.
Huge, a wingspan that big, and they got a black, naked head. Mm-hmm. Beautiful, with black wingtips. They have to have big, mature cypress forests. The Hubbard Company in 1909 to 1927 took out all the big cypress. They got every cypress that was over 12 inches in diameter.
One migratory animal that found a particularly difficult time surviving in the swamp and has also come and gone from it is us, humans. Beginning with Native Americans and for a brief time European pioneers, the problems they faced could not be measured or overcome. Not only did they face a sweltering, merciless environment, but at times they had to face each other too.
Can you imagine going to an island with no tools, maybe an axe, maybe a plow, with just a basic minimum, and maybe a shotgun. They probably had some kind of weapon. And to clear the land, build a house, clear more land to plant my garden. And you know, some of these pine trees have tap roots that go down 8 feet. Tap roots that are a fat lighter. And they had to get them things out of there in order to be able to plow that land. So it took them years to clear land and to grow crops. The Wiles family contributed their cabin, and that's the last one. It was in 1837 or 38 that they killed the family. They killed everybody in the family except two little kids that were hiding in the bushes. They survived. Infants, teenagers, children, it didn't matter. They killed everybody.
Protected wetlands mean just that, protected. The swamp is a place where all animals can find secluded shelter and defense from the outside world. Every living thing, every plant, and every animal can live without fear of being hunted, shot, trapped, poisoned, or run over by a pickup.
No exceptions except the wild hog. You can kill wild hogs anywhere, anytime, any number, because that's about the worst thing that's ever happened to us.
And why wouldn't we want to preserve the sanctuary of animals that have developed some of the most amazing skills that even we could imagine? As the animals have developed unique survival techniques, so has the vegetation. The Okefenokee flora isn't all that unique in terms of species, but in an evergreen land where the islands float and shake, the plant life in the Okefenokee have developed some exceptional growing skills.
You and I are on the largest island in the swamp. This is the cow house. It's sand, it's solid, it's part of the dirt. Out there in the swamp, there are islands that float. And they've been floating so long that they've grown and added so much debris on top of themselves that they push the bottom layer plumb to the bottom. So now there are peat islands that are not floating anymore, but they're touching the bottoms, but they're still soft and spongy. And if you can stand up on one and jump, you can shake the trees. You can shake the trees, and that is amazing. You can shake a big cypress tree 100 feet high.
If left to their own accords, these islands would eventually come together to make one huge peat island. But as is always the case, nature has her way. At its deepest, these wetlands only measure around 20 to 30 feet in depth, just shallow enough for the living land to float for a while before hitting the bottom, but just deep enough to accumulate peat beds that can burn and then burn some more.
On the hill, when it burns down to the sand, that's it. It quits. It goes out. But in here, when it goes down to the peat bed, it keeps on burning. And peat will burn when it's 30% moisture content. 30% moisture content, it'll burn. So peat is the big difference. And it can smolder underground for weeks and months. And maybe burns its way back out again somewhere else. 10 miles away, it might pop back up again.
And while some fires can help the swamp heal, as in ridding the land of diseased vegetation and promoting some plant life to flower, produce, and release seeds, the frequency and intensity of a fire disturbance to the process of biological succession can signal something much more ominous.
Now we have fires about every 3 to 5 years. We used to have fires every 20, 30, or 40 years.
And while the evidence is clear that climate change is happening, the reasons are hotly debated and extremely controversial. Professor Berryhill, however, sees the change as mostly natural and cites the Milankovitch cycles as a primary reason. Milutin Milankovitch, a Serbian-born geophysicist and astronomer, mathematically theorized, while in a POW camp during World War I, the cyclical nature of the Earth's climate changes.
Number one, the path of the Earth around the sun. We do it every year. We come back to the same spot every year. Except sometimes, some years, that we go a little longer on one side than the other side. And it becomes an ellipse. So that means we're at different distances from the sun. Our distance from the sun, normally we say 93 million miles. It fluctuates between 92 and 95 million miles. Because it is not a perfect circular orbit around the sun. Right now we're moving into a circle. We're getting closer to the sun on all sides.
The other cyclical factors Milankovitch theorized involve variations over thousands of years in the tilt of the Earth's axis and the direction of Earth's axis of rotation. But this theory isn't the only factor contributing to global warming. There are a number of other factors that, when piled onto the Milankovitch theory, do nothing but put all the pieces in place for a perfect global warming storm.
Atmospheric pollution, lots of other stuff. Carbon dioxide has a direct effect on global heating, global warming, a direct effect. And our population is becoming more mobile. Automobile exhaust, any internal combustion engine exhaust produces carbon dioxide, as well as other toxic gases. Global warming is here among us.
The Okefenokee. In the grand scheme, it's just a baby, but it's been around long enough to establish itself as something permanent, no matter the disturbance and devastation. Over more than 5,000 years, the swamp has grown, evolved, and provided a refuge for those looking for a new home, but even more so for those just passing through. Yes, in the beginning, it was barren, a flat desert plain with nothing much to show off. Now, it is alive. And even year-long fires can't wipe it out, though they do change it in ways that we today can't understand, because the fires can wipe out in a day what nature took 1,000 years to form. So, in the end, what is the lesson? Maybe it comes straight from humanity. Maybe it was left behind by the people who first recognized the unique nature of the swamp. Maybe they understood that in the Okefenokee Swamp, the ground is shaky, and everything can change in a moment.
We were once alive like you are now, but we complained and hollered anyhow. So love each day, don't pass it by. Sooner or later, you too will die. That sign was put up there by the first people who built the park.